For instance, in music, there are certain kinds of line, of like a musical phrase that can happen that delights you when you hear it. And that delight is a delight that's heartfelt. And that fact of a heartfelt response can happen when words are working right.
Learn a little patience and generosity. If you see apocalypse in a long red car or a flying saucer, sit where you are. If you feel a little bliss, don't worry about that. Give your wife a kiss when your tire goes flat. When your tire goes flat, when your tire goes flat. Keep your heart on under your hat. If you can't think straight and you don't know who to call, it's never too late to do nothing at all. Do nothing at all. Do nothing at all. Never too late to do nothing at all. Do the meditation. Do the meditation. Do the meditation. Do the meditation. Learn a little patience and generosity. 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 And generosity. Get yourself together, lots of energy, and learn a little patience and generosity. If you sit for an hour or a minute every day, you can tell the superpower to sit the same way. You can tell the superpower to watch and to wait and to stop and meditate, cause it's never too late. Tell the superpower to watch and to wait, cause it's never too late to learn to meditate. Do the meditation, do the meditation, do the meditation, do the meditation. Learn a little patience and generosity, 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 yeah, generosity. Get yourself together, lots of energy, and learn a little patience and generosity. Do the meditation, do the meditation, do the meditation, do the meditation. Learn a little patience and generosity, 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 and generosity.
Jack Kerouac introduced the idea of total, frank, spontaneous mind as the medium of the art, as the instrument of the art, as the path of the art, as the ground of the art, as the fruition of the art, the mind itself, and the activity of the mind, measuring the external world. So he introduced that total honesty of examining the mind rather than attempting to fake a picture of the external world that the mind sees. So he included the mind in his picture of the external world. So he joined external world and internal world, and thus joined heaven and earth in America.
Growing up in Paterson, New Jersey, Allen Ginsberg followed the scholarly example of his father, teacher and poet Louis Ginsberg, and was instructed in Marxist revolution by his mother Naomi. Went to Columbia University at 16, and was encouraged in his poetic growth by Jack Kerouac and William Burroughs. For years, in travels through America, Mexico, Europe, and Asia, studying a variety of religions and putting himself through numerous psychic experiments, Ginsberg winnowed out the essentials of human consciousness, and relating these to the endless in and out flow of breath, he has produced a poetry that is always as true to the evolution of the universe as to the needs of the thousands of people who pass yearly through his life.
Appel asked me to write a poem on Kerouac as he painted. And so this was like a brief biography of Kerouac, improvised to go along with his painting. He was a blue-eyed baby by Merrimack River in Lowell, he said. He was a football athlete, dreamt girls in black lace panties, fell in spiritual love with Sebastian Sampras, who read Shelley. I weep for Adonais, they cried in red brick mill alleys, and young Sebastian died at Anzio Beachhead, World War II. In New York, he heard Bird Harlem bop with his own ear and watched his father die, bitter urine bloating his belly. Thus wrote The Town and the City, and 13 books thereafter unpublished till in 1956 when This Shadow was cast in a camera. Surrealist poet Gregory Corso lent him this cross for the photo.
Here you see the profound beauty of America in his dark, tragic eyes. He'd already scribed 1,000 dreams, 1,000 pages of Dharma, 1,000,000 words that sounded like 1,000,000 ears. His heart was tender. He'd already died and become recording angel. 10 years later, red-faced like his father, drunk, weeping beer, he wrote The Vanity of Kerouac.
Lawrence Ferlinghetti, orphan, vagabond, seaman, bohemian poet of the streets, with a Ph.D. from the Sorbonne, student of Baudelaire and Thomas Wolfe and Charlie Chaplin, who came to San Francisco from the East, and there, through his City Lights bookstore and publishing company, gave teeth to the San Francisco literary renaissance by publishing Allen Ginsberg's Howl, and later many other works by Beat Generation writers regarded then as equally scandalous. During the 50s and 60s, Ferlinghetti brought the best of hip humor and social concern to old and young across America and Europe through his highly successful reading tours. His continuous publishing and performing activities have supported each successive generation of offbeat American literary genius.
Look Homeward, Jack. 2 correspondences. They're prose poems. Number 1. Cruising down long winding highway near Asheville and looking east over vast high plains stretched way below Blue Ridge horizon, from high on that highway coming down and round a bend and seeing a rapt panorama laid out like the altiplano of Tenochtitlan, ancient Aztec Mexico as I saw it coming down past Popo from the west and Tepoztlan, the old Aztec capital, there spread out before Cortez, under the verdant forest jungle like rich, deep blue-green woods and fields running to the horizon like some blue-green sea, the whole Aztec civilization alive there, hidden under the lush green canopy. A Kerouac vision of the great Fellahin metropole. How it must have looked to a rider coming sudden upon it then from the far side of Popo. Some great warrior on horseback, stoned on peyote, with gold headpiece and flashing sword, staring down at the sleeping, hidden, huge island city in early morn. All gone now. Tenochtitlan buried under Mexico City blues in the American grain. Look Homeward, Jack, Part 2. In the Thomas Wolfe boarding house in Asheville, rooms he slept in, typewriter he once used, his books and clothes and photos. One early photo looking exactly like a young Jack Kerouac set me musing, high on Mexican grass. Sweeping vision of America in Look Homeward, Angel, seen by the young Eugene Gant as he rode a train through the American dusk, to flash upon the window and be gone. Wolfe's place, said Maxwell Perkins, was all of America. So with Jack, Kerouac's vision, a car vision, seen from windows of old autos speeding cross country, the same Wolfian old pre-war America now all but gone invisible, except in Greyhound bus stations in small, lost, dusty towns. And Jack's Lowell, Mass., a mill town too, and Asheville, like a mill town after the mills moved south early in the century, carrying Canuck ghosts with them. Wolfe and Jack drinking together now in eternity, omnivorous, insatiable consumers of life, which consumed both of them too early. Wolfe's stone angel akin to Jack's stone angels of the cross in Lowell graveyard angels of mercy. Both never happy abroad, never happy expatriates. Wolfe drunk in Berlin, Jack stoned on a Mexican rooftop or staggering by the Seine. And which of them would know his brother? Look homeward, Jack.
Jan Kerouac, novelist and poet, is the only child of Jack Kerouac. Born in Albany, New York, she traveled through Mexico, Tangier, and Europe in her famous dad's footsteps, inherited both his proclivity for the hobo's life and his delight in wordplay. In her own recently published novel, Baby Driver, She creates a spontaneous musical text that sings her soulful moods as well as describing exactly the details of her childhood. Here, she reads a portion of her mother Joan's memoir of life with Jack, tentatively entitled Nobody's Wife.
Date was set, and at the appointed hour during my break, I hurried to the new address to see how things were going and collect my key. I had closed the book on my life with Jack. I saw the moving truck from 2 blocks away and ran toward it, but as I approached, the sight on the sidewalk made me stop in my tracks. There sat Jack on his desk in his sheepskin slippers, his morning face squinting at me under disheveled hair. I asked him, "What's going on here?" "That's what I was about to ask you," he said. "Well, obviously I've moved out, but I hadn't intended to take you with me." "He says he's your husband," said the driver. "I told him he'd have to wait outside till you confirmed his story." "Then what?" I asked. "Then I'll give him the key. Husbands have rights, you know." "You mean I can't have my own apartment?" "Look, lady, I'm not a lawyer, but unless you have a court order, you can't keep your husband out of your home, and vice versa." "Come on, let's get off the street before we draw a crowd," Jack said. "He's my husband," I admitted. "Okay," the driver said, "that'll be $10 more for the desk." I exclaimed, "$10? Don't complain. I moved your husband for free. Thanks a lot." I sighed at Jack and handed over the additional 10. The desk was carried upstairs. "I'm your husband, remember?" Jack glanced at me briefly, then looked away, his arms folded. "You can't walk out on me." I didn't know what to say. Couldn't understand why he'd come. He wasn't any happier with the marriage than I was. "You can give me that key now," he said to the driver when he came downstairs. "Sorry, lady," the driver said. "Next time, try moving to another state." He drove away, leaving us to our problems. "If you do go out, please lock up, Jack. I have to get back to work." "Don't worry about it," he said glumly. "My manuscript's in there."
Well, let's see, from 1948 on, when there was what was called the Berkeley Renaissance, with Philip Lamantia and Jack Spicer and Duncan, through the wartime, or earlier in the wartime, there was like an anarchist group that was really interesting. Brother Antoninus, Thomas Parkinson, Rex Roth, the late Rex Roth, Philip Lamantia, the Surrealist Kid, who always was a anarchist, pacifist, anti-Stalinist, anti-authoritarian, literary, bohemian, Gnostic, anti-war circle. And that manifested itself in literature and painting, in bohemian parties, poetry readings. So there was already cultivated a San Francisco Renaissance with an audience rich, ready to hear anything new. So that when Creeley came to town, or me and Gregory or Jack came to town, or Gary Snyder or Philip Whalen arrived in San Francisco, there were a group of highly sensitized readers and writers that formed the community. And since it was outside of New York, it was like a big provincial community, but just as well educated as New York. So, because it was less busy, more open, so everybody had time to be hospitable and to listen.
Howard Hart, traditional Catholic scholar out of Cincinnati, taking his Midwestern decency and work ethic to Columbia for an M.A., then a sudden plunge into the bohemian life in Greenwich Village, rooming with both Philip Lamantia and Jack Kerouac, and a career as a jazz drummer under the tutelage of mentors like Kenny Clarke and Elvin Jones. All the stops are pulled in his exploration of the entranced states of erotic love, and his authentic surrealist images are always carried lightly by the exercise of a mind developed over years of solitary discipline as a spiritual athlete.
I was a drummer till I was 19, and I started combining drumming and being what they call an intellectual. And I was an editor in a lot of New York places, but I always wrote my own work. And then Kerouac came through town, and he was a friend of the guy who was rooming with me, Lamantia. So we said, let's go on, try to play at the Circle in the Square Theater, which now is about $19 a shot, And I told them this is what I wanted to do, I want to bring Kerouac on, Lamantia on, and me on. And they said, okay, because we're still considering your play, And so I mean, Kerouac used to be fascinating. We had David Amram, he's the conductor of the Brooklyn Philharmonic right now. You know, we had him as our musician, and he could stay with anything we did. And I think Kerouac was excellent, and I know Philip was excellent, and so many people told me that I was excellent. I started to believe it. Maybe that was my first mistake.
Philip Lamantia, native San Franciscan who came to New York City as a teenager, pronounced the first true American surrealist by André Breton, helped to edit View magazine, later explored the jazz and Afro-American rhythms of Harlem in pursuit of original mind, automatic revelations, and the imaginative thrust into the unknown. Early on, he was a sweet, gentle Catholic mystic scholar, saving souls with the grace of poetry. Later, returned to San Francisco, a somewhat reclusive researcher into universal secrets of tribal myths. And despite his tenderness, an intransigent bearer of Native American literary heart fire.
Poe, Baudelaire, One Echo in Two. Home is the domain of Arnheim, as it slips out of gear, falling through entangled metals of its sublime view, from all the winged forests, the windowsills of an old house at the bottom of anywhere out of this world. Well, I'll read a Time Traveler's Potlatch, which is a game that was invented a few years ago by surrealist friends of ours in Chicago. And as in the Northwest Amerindian potlatch tradition of sumptuousness and excess, gifts are offered to those who attract the imagination of the giver. For Simon Rodia, the sudden appearance at once of 1 million Americans in Watts in order to be in close proximity to his towers. For Charlie Parker, the materialization of his old green jacket reforming the flag of the future republic of desire and dreams. For Edgar Allan Poe, upon awakening, an original copy of the first Surrealist Manifesto. For Charlie Chaplin, his wrench of modern times reconstituted as Merlin's magic wand. For Bela Lugosi, a chance meeting with Morgan Le Fay at the observation roof of the Empire State Building. For William Collins, his Ode to Fear, engraved in banishing letters on the Scottish Highlands between the bleeding milk of night and the death wish of the coming day. For Clement Magloire Saint-Aude, who is a great Haitian poet who died a few years ago. André Breton claimed he's the greatest poet in the French language, I guess after Aimé Césaire, the other black poet of this century. The cinematic projection from a hummingbird's eye of Charlie Parker's spontaneous musical session at Bop City, San Francisco in 1954, fixed in an order of black, white, and red crystallizations volatilizing the human brain on the brink of an evolutionary mutation through a circle of blazing rum.
I just don't want to stop talking, and writing's the only way I can keep talking even when nobody's there.
Raised in West Texas, an actress on radio and stage, painter and collage artist Bobby Louise Hawkins survived with a variety of jobs like missionary schoolteacher and itinerant saleswoman that later provided material for her satiric short stories and down-home black humor. Through marriage to Robert Creeley, she was connected to the Beat Circle of writers, but she remained her own woman, publishing her poems and stories as well as illustrating the work of others. She has spent the past several years performing around the world, often with folk musicians Terry Garthwaite and Rosalie Sorrells.
I think there's a kind of thing that words do that's equivalent in music, say, to sympathetic strings, where when you have an instrument being played, and you have like a guitar, and you have a guitar lying on the bed, you'll have guitar strings and the one that's not being touched vibrating relative to the music. I think that writers have that same effect relative to words and concept. Words are lively. to writers.
Constantly risking absurdity and death. Whenever he performs above the heads of his audience, the poet, like an acrobat, climbs on rhymes to a high wire of his own making, and balancing on I-beams above a sea of faces, paces his way to the other side of day, performing entre-shots and sleight-of-foot tricks and other high theatrics, and all without mistaking anything for what it may not be. For he's the super-realist who must perforce perceive taught truth before the taking of each stance or step in his supposed advance toward that still higher perch where beauty stands and waits with gravity to start her death-defying leap. And he, a little Charlie Chaplin man, who may or may not catch her fair eternal form, spread-eagled in the empty air of existence.
I want a smaller thing in mind, like a good dinner. I'm tired of these big things happening. They happen to me all the time.
Joanne Kiger grew up in Santa Barbara, where she studied at the University of California. Taking part in the San Francisco poetry renaissance of the late 50s, she apprenticed herself to Jack Spicer and Robert Duncan. In 1960, she married Gary Snyder in Japan, and in 1962, she and Gary joined Allen Ginsberg and Peter Orlovsky on their travels through India. After returning to the U.S., she spent the next 2 decades mostly in and around San Francisco, publishing poetry and segments of her journals. Helped by her studies in Buddhism and American Indian folklore, her work has been steadily developing the grace of a life reduced to the simple aim of being alive.
Often I try so hard with stimulants which only graze the surface, like I wish to become surface, whereas the real state is called golden, where things are exactly what they are. This is a news bulletin from Keith Lampe. It's called Soon. Little Neural Annie was fined $65 on the Oakland traffic court this season for driving while in a state of samadhi. California secular law requires that all drivers of motor vehicles remain firmly seated within their bodies while the vehicle is in motion. This applies to both greater vehicles and lesser vehicles.
Born Harvey Martin Silver in the Bronx, Jack Micheline read James Farrell's novel Studs Lonergan in a dark alley, joined the Army, and began his own pilgrimage across America through boarding houses, cheap hotels, and all-night cafes, always seeking out the people with beautiful hearts and souls, always praising courage and condemning fear. A bohemian poet who never wanted fame or commercial success, he has published 12 books during 3 decades, and audiences of young people continue to clamor for his rousing live performances of poem and song. Fresh and vital, like the works of such mentors as Langston Hughes, Vachel Lindsay, and Maxwell Bodenheim, with the pulse of the street.
I have no friends, I am a poet. It is 2 a.m. as I walk in the air, the silent roar of buses up Market Street. It is a dark night with no stars, and the Twin Peaks bar is full of fags. Lumpy the murderer walks with me, and the Spanish girl with wild eyes is silent. Lumpy is carrying a knife to pull some job, and the Spanish girl already full of cocaine and flowers. One cannot talk a poem. It is a stepping stone to stars, to the ability to walk out into infinities. All the cat wants to do is cross the street. It is 2, and they will serve no more drinks tonight. Yet the lights are bright at the Mint on the Boyce, and each poem is the last call, the last foghorn amid the concrete, glass, and spires of a city. One must seek to move forward. The Fillmore bus driver has one eye open, and all I pass are drunks and freaks, rebellious youth, and misplaced stars. The music is not the music of silence. It is the music of America that has lost its way, fat, gutless, and decaying like the whales already dead on the beaches. A poem must seek the youth and shadow. It is a crippled curve of a scythe. It is the lack of love and greed that is the enemy. No poem can compensate for that. There are no prizes in the arts. The steps of poet cuts at the fog. A poem is an escape from prison to create new realities. A poet is a criminal of nature. He is against all factions. He is the roach that never gave up, the lemming of Saskatchewan, the ghost himself, the cat that crosses the street and no one notices. As I walk the street tonight, 3 crimes will be committed: murder, arson, and rape. And the greatest crime of all: 1 hand, 1 gun, 1 knife, 1 eye, 1 fist, 1 tongue against another, some faction, 1 family, all wanting more, never satisfied. The jungle, the prize fight, the ball game bigger, be a winner. Bullshit, I scream. Fuck power. All these are members of the toothless academies. The police bent on law and order, and the petty burglar with the paper bag climbing a fence. Hold it, motherfucker, the cops scream. Bang, bang, shot in the back, dead on the sidewalk, his eyes like poems. Shot by fear, the burglar, the suspect, the poet, the ones on top of the pyramid, again laughing, controlling it, making sure the cat does not cross the street. And the poet with courage, the one that drops the seed, remains unsung, unknown. Surely man is a little creature indeed. Then the 2 eyes of the burglar, the suspect, like real poems, dead in the night, address unknown, name who cares, he had no name, just 2 eyes like poems, dead on arrival. San Francisco, August 5th, 1975.
Bob Kaufman's heritage, mixture of German, Jewish, and Martinique black voodoo, in a mind of the most scintillating wit, has enabled him to penetrate all the shams in the many straight and hip worlds he's passed through, from New York City to San Francisco, to all the ports he touched as a merchant marine sailor. A great follower of jazz, he's the one member of the Beat generation whose timing is always perfect, as he makes a life of drugs, jail, and sensory derangement into one of the softest and sweetest songs of our time.
Somewhere a Buddha sits in silence and holds the poet and the world in separate hands and realizes he's born to die. The blood of the poet flows in his poem so much that the others demand an explanation. The poet answers that the poem is not to be explained. It's what is the reality of the poem, cannot be dyed. The poet, a fish with frog's eyes. Creation is perfect.
Déjà vu. I have seen you before. You cowered under a horse during a spot of the war at Samothrace. I have seen you before in The Hague, where the ducks waddled and sang. You were before me in line for a movie in Venice. You had a bag trailing fine knitting. I saw the needles peeking like overaged children. You and I, we know that Madrid is a dangerous place, but I watched you for an hour sitting under a grand clock in a momentous hotel lobby. I went up in the elevator, and on the 4th floor, I killed myself. You see, we believe everything disappears with the music. on a bar stool in Barstow. I met her in Kingman. I quelled all her qualms.
Ken Kesey, wrestling champion and young novelist from Oregon, came to California as a result of reading on the road, polished his technique at Stanford University, and became a national bestseller with One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, paying serious attention to society's rejects in a mental institution. Later, using LSD and psychic exploration with his band of merry pranksters in La Honda, Kesey became the lightning rod for the bolts of revolutionary energy released in the countercultural movement of the 60s. At the same time, he chronicled homespun Oregon courage, virtue, and self-reliance in the novel Sometimes a Great Notion, which portrays a Native American heroism whose muscular power is as much in the heart as in the arms and back.
In Phoenix, I fought to forget her, to the clapping of 29 palms. Oh, Molly, my Death Valley dolly, you're gone, by golly, you're gone. Where the scorpions hide and the sidewinders slide, my fierce little falcon has flown. Take one over there for a while.
Zen can cause changes in the texture of your hair, removing you from the clutches of sexy barbers. Edgar Kesey can locate your gallstones and other organs on the anarchistic rock piles of Sacramento. Voodoo Marie can give you Laura's abstract horses, snorting guides to tall baby black masters. Billy can plug you into the Christ machine, mail in your mind today. Hurry, bargain God, week lasts 1 week only. Abominous actions, Egyptian mummies are lousy dancers. Alcoholics cannot make it on root beer. Jazz never made it back down the river. Licking postage stamps depletes the body fluids. Fat automobiles laugh more than others. Men who die in wars become seagulls and fly. Roaches have a rough time of it from birth. People who read are not happy. People who do not read are not happy. People are not happy.
The trees were large and old and went down when they widened the streets across this whole nation, part and parcel with when the cars went big as a value, big streets for big cars. That kind of trashy thinking where the exterior was suddenly the winner and got all the goods. What in God's name did they think was going to come down those streets that needed that much room? Forward thinking, like cargo cults put their little piece of landing strip in the middle of their home place and wait for the great silver gods that have gone into the sky and pass over their heads to notice, see, we have made a place for you dug into the body of our place, and we wait. See, we wait. And the trees went down, and the houses that had been dappled with shade and private, each one a thing, they got dumped onto the street and stood exposed and naked, and now you could see things about them as that there had been only 3 patterns the builder used, and seeing the same house repeated cheapened it, and the houses shamefully acknowledged their new condition by becoming whatever sign was nailed to the front: Realtor, Sunshine Insurance Inc., Massage, Artistic Framers. And the gods never came. The streets never justified their widening. The cars got smaller, shrank as the years passed. They had lost their chance. The cars were finally not what they had tried to be in the greater American imagination. Remember how we deplored it? Think how long we hated the growing cars, and it kept continuing to be just the same. Remember, we were deploring it even as they were putting the sharp fins on the back that literally killed people by stabbing them when all the driver meant was to back up. That could have been when the cars were fighting back, and they lost. And in the wake of that war, a lot of litter and ugliness. And we got left with all those streets.
A New York City street kid, Gregory Corso was the youngest inmate at Dannemora State Prison, where an old man told him, "Don't serve time, son, let time serve you." And he began reading histories of ancient Greece and the great classics of French and English Romantic literature. His literary genius spun poetry between the poles of the ancient Babylonian epic of Gilgamesh and Shelley's reveries before the awesome forces of nature, with a lot of happy Italian conman razzmatazz besides, seeking out the goodies, as he terms them, from all the ages, to justify his own tender-hearted celebrations in the love-starved streets beneath the terrifying shadow of the atom bomb.
Speaking of nuts, I know why people think I'm nuts. It's because of the way I talk, act, and look. This is for the sisters. Women. I know why women are the way they are. 99% of men don't know, and 50% of women don't know why women are the way they are. They are the way they are because they don't fear death like men do. i.e., they fear it less. When a man dies, it's kind of spooky. When a woman dies, it becomes nothing more than a funeral with arrangements to be made. The flowers, the black shawls, the tears. But the death of a man, ye gods, it spooks everyone. Why? I know why. Because late at night on a lonely street, a woman walking behind a man is less scary than a man walking behind a woman. But the truest reason why women are the way they are, and men, for that matter, why they are what they are, is because women are magical and men mystical. I, unlike most men, have the confidence of the female. They have, in my lifetime, honored me with their confidence. And the best time to confide with them, I learned, was after having sex with them. High-class pillow talk has proven beneficial many a time. They, women, become so intrigued with my gaining their confidence, and theirs mine, that they allow you a decent rest before going crash-bang after their God only knows zillionth orgasm. I know what most people are afraid to know. I know the truth about myself. Most people also know, but they don't want to know. Don't even want to hear about it. I've ruined many a nice, fancy, happy dinner talking about things people know but didn't want to hear.
I'm facing an expanse of water. On the other side, low mountains rise, and Monkey Man is leading by the hand the earth. Earth spirit face comes out, and fly, fox, spirit, crazy, loose dragon over the range to maybe scare you, to love earth animals. It was a beautiful golden day Now a black split shape scuttles under the foot. So long, sayonara. The fat cat dozes down. I could use a little rest too. I only slept 11 hours last night. Wrote some letters, swept the floor, planted 2 rows of onions, snow peas, and now I'm looking forward to washing my hair. When I step through the door, everything has changed. Finally, it's out the door. Past homes, down the trail, the lovely beach draws me into its drawing. Finally, I am past the fear of life's paucity. Green angels stream in hot California, and in the stillness, seeds popping.
Harold Norse, student of literature at Brooklyn College and New York University. His poems published widely at a young age and recipient of an accolade from William Carlos Williams, later expatriated himself to Europe to study in depth many cultures, including the Greek, French, and Italian, in order to refine the deep humanistic values of tolerance and compassion that were his by nature. At the Beat Hotel in Paris, he pioneered cut-up techniques with William Burroughs. Norse brings a clean line of American breath phrasing to classical homoerotic themes, as well as to the latest catastrophes of American militant materialism, as he speaks to the best in all of us, demanding that we pay close attention to the misery, but never forget the dream of the Golden Age.
I think it was 1952 or 1 that William Carlos Williams invited me to read at the Museum of Modern Art in New York. And E. Cummings was in the audience, and he came up to me afterwards and got to know him. At that point, whether I knew it or not, I had 2 influences in the spoken language of American speech, which later became William Carlos Williams' major contribution to American letters, which Allen Ginsberg had been most influenced by. And earlier, as a matter of fact, in 1944, Allen Ginsberg and I met on the subway in New York. It was about 4 in the morning, and I was going home to my room in the village, Greenwich Village, and I saw this young boy of about 18 with eyeglasses and a red bandana around his neck, reciting poetry. There was nobody else in the whole train. And at the stops, I heard parts of what he was reciting. It was French. Then I realized it was Rimbaud. The first thing I said to Allen Ginsberg was, "Rimbaud." And he said, "You're a poet." And at that point, we began talking about it. He ended up with me in my small room on Horatio Street, Greenwich Village, talking till 7 o'clock in the morning. He showed me his unpublished poems. He hadn't published any yet. And I had published a long poem in Poetry magazine called Key West, which is also my first book, The Undersea Mountain. Well, the influences really that became major to me, that really developed what you might say my mature style, was basically William Carlos Williams. What he told me was that I had to use the language that I grew up with on the streets of New York, and that was my natural gift.
A public poetry. The fact is, the Russians are sissies, and the Chinese are big yellow sissies too. Americans, by their nature, sissies. That's why they ran away to the New World and beat up the Indians. Africans were too sissy to fight the Western blunderbuss, gave up, slavery, chains, whips. Take that hammer, hit it on the rock pile. Nicaraguans, Latin American sissies, afraid of giant sissy United States. So sissy the United States, they exploded nuclear bombs over the sissy Japs, who proved they were sissies by surrendering to American automobiles, pinstripe nylon suits, and milk McDonald's. I myself, a famous sissy, it takes one to know one. I know General Alexander Haig, the present Secretary of State, a prissy sissy. He used to scream at Nicaragua, freaked by death squads in El Salvador. That's why he gives all his nickels to the junta in Guatemala. Complains to the Russian sissies, always screaming Castro's a big bully. Reagan, the biggest sissy. Hollywood sissy. Bechtel Corporation sissy. Such a sissy, he gave $200 billion to the Pentagon bullies. He's scared they'll beat him up if you don't let the generals take all his money. And the American public is sissy too. Scared if they don't give everything in their pockets to the Defense Department, those muscle men at the Pentagon and the tough guys at the CIA will beat up Congress and the Supreme Court and take over the whole Western Bloc.
A native of the Lower East Side in New York, with brothers and sister in the madhouse, Peter Orlovsky went to San Francisco in the Army and there met his life's soulmate, Allen Ginsberg. Ever since, as world-traveling, performing bards, they have kept watch over each other's intellect and conscience, with Allen bringing to Peter his great acquisition of fact knowledge, and Peter offering his amazing intuitive understanding of human personality and his undaunted enthusiasm as a cheerleader of human potential.
Write it down, Allen said. 1961 bus ride from Damascus to East Jerusalem for 1 month visit. What lucky joy thinking back on it. Got rooftop room in Arab hotel across from Damascus Gate, fortress entrance into old stone-walled city. Arab hotel desk keeper started to get more excited in mid-conversation about my question to him. Why are you so angry to the Jews? It's not good for you or for them. Anger only gets in the way of solving problems between Arabs and Jews. Then he said Arabs will always hate the Jews because when he was a boy, his father owned a coffee shop in Palestine. And one day Jews or Israelis came with submachine guns and told him, come out from inside and start walking down the road. And said they'd be killed right now in front coffee shop if they didn't walk right now. They stole his coffee shop and gave him anger in return for his coffee shop. How many young tender travelers has he told this Jewish robbery to? How many fellow Mohammedan Arabs did he have to cream his anger to? Met young Palestine poet who translated hotel keeper's anger and took me to his family refugee tin roof city. Rich anger that sprouts years of memory anger. Poor anger sprouting buds of tongue pain. His coffee shop now only a tiny emotional photograph behind his front skull bone.
So it's called All Survived. The United States of America bombed itself 86 times in the 1940s, 50s, and early 60s. It bombed its Utah, its New Mexico, its Nevada, and clouds took it to all surrounding states. All survived until 2 decades later when the dead finally died.
Oh, the dead stalk the corridors of airports. It's the dead that rule this world. It's the dead, it's the dead, it's the goddamn dead. It's the dead that rule this world. It's the guys writing poems in the streets of this world. It's the guys writing poems for a song. It's the sound that comes from deep in the heart. It's the sound of jumping out from the air. It's the dead, it's the dead, it's the goddamn dead. It's the dead that rule this world. Don't let it get you down. Don't let the fear bring you down. The Roxanne. All men are born to be free. Oh, the dead stalk the corridors of airports. It's the dead that rule this world. It's the dead. It's the dead. It's the damn dead. It's the dead that rule this world. Yeah.
In the waning days of 1968, for some reason never very specific and now nearly obscured by time, the Grateful Dead made arrangements with the Beatles to send over to London a sampling of psychedeloids, a kind of cultural lend-lease, heads across the water and all that. There were 13 of us in all, hippies, hoopies, harpies, Hells Angels and their hogs, a few serious managers with lots of plots and proposals, and one prankster without plan one. I was happy to be getting out of the U.S. Electric Kool-Aid acid test had just come out, and I felt the hot beam of the spotlight on me at home. It burned like a big eye. The voltage of all this attention scared me a little and titillated me a lot, and I needed a breather from it before I became an addict or a casualty. Now stand in this spotlight. Now feel this eye pass across you. You never forget it. You're suddenly changed. You're lifted. You're singled out. You're elevated out and alone above any of your old Bush League frets of stage fright, nagging scruples, etc. Self-consciousness and irresolution melt in this beam's blast. Grace and power surge in to take their place. Shooting speed is the only thing that's even close. Drowsing protoplasm snaps instantly to Bruce Lee perfection. Enter the dragon. But there's the scaly rub, right? Because if you go around to the other end of that eye and look through at the stars shining there so elevated, you see that this adoring telescope has a crosshair built in it and notches on it, and the barrel filed for luminaries: Kennedy, King, Joplin, Hemingway.
The heart never grows old. It grows stilettos, thorns, rays. It is the cup of knowledge. It grows to the gnosis of becoming the gate of streamlets in a jungle of power. It contracts, growls, spits, scratches. Eagle talons are its outcroppings. The divine Desaad is the heart's dilation, and the heart dies, never to grow old. The heart lives and makes love to the brain.
I'd like to read the first poem that I wrote in San Francisco, written at the Café Trieste. At the Trieste. The music of ancient Greece or Rome did not come down to us, but this morning I read Virgil's eclogues, struck by the prophecy of a new era. A great new cycle of centuries begins. Justice returns to earth, the golden age returns, he wrote, 30 years before the end of his millennium, describing the birth of the infant God come down from heaven. Jesus was 19 when Virgil died at 89. Will the golden age never come? Same faces thrown up each generation, same races, emotions, struggles, all those centuries, those countries, languages, songs, discontents, they return here in San Francisco as I sit in the Trieste, recitative of years. O Paradiso, sings the jukebox, as Virgil and Verdi combine in this life to produce the only golden age there'll be.
I've pissed off a lot of people in my time. The good doctor let us know. But you never disappointed them. I told him, you never promised world peace or universal love, did you? He admitted that he had not. We all admitted that it had been quite a while since any of us had spoken of such Pollyanna pie in the sky. And I know we all suspicioned silently as we sipped our thoughtful drinks that maybe it was time to get involved, to speak out again, crosshairs or no. Else how were we going to be able to look that little bespectacled Lilliputian in the eye again when the revolutionary road is called up yonder? Thank you.
The group of writers that are now called beat writers, I think their greatest gift was friendship. We all liked each other. Burroughs was always very tender-hearted toward me, and shy and tender-hearted to Jack. And Jack was always very sensitive to Burroughs' intelligence. And everybody dug each other and mythologized each other instantly in whatever mythologies we could invent out of Dostoevsky or Thomas Mann or our own idea.
For the world is a beautiful place to be born into. If you don't mind happiness not always being so very much fun. If you don't mind a touch of hell now and then, just when everything is fine, because even in heaven, they don't sing all the time. The world is a beautiful place to be born into, if you don't mind some people dying all the time, or maybe only starving some of the time, which isn't half so bad if it isn't you. Oh, the world is a beautiful place to be born into, if you don't much mind a few dead minds in the higher places. Or a bomb or two now and then in your upturned faces, or such other improprieties as our name brand society is prey to, with its men of distinction and its men of extinction, and its priests and other patrolmen, and its various segregations and congressional investigations and other constipations that our fool flesh is heir to. Yes, the world is the best place of all for a lot of such things as making the fun scene and making the love scene and making the sad scene and singing low songs and having inspirations and walking around looking at everything and smelling flowers and goosing statues and even thinking and kissing people and making babies and wearing pants and waving hats and dancing and going swimming in rivers on picnics in the middle of the summer and just generally living it up. Ow! Yes, but then, right in the middle of it, comes a smiling mortician.
In later days, remembering this, I shall certainly go mad. Reading sung poems, I think of my poems to Neil, dead few years now, Jack, underground, invisible. Their faces rise in my mind. Did I write truthfully of them? In later times, I saw them little. Not much difference, they're dead. They live in books and memory, strong as on earth.